here with your gamer goggles, gamer-goggles.com, and today we have another flip through for you. This one's on the Inner Sea races for Pathfinder. And this book, I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning right now. I'm going to try to spoil it a little bit because there's no other way to do it. This book is full of meat. There is not a lot of art in this book, and we're going to start right here. We're going to zoom in a little bit on the table of contents because it's going to say a lot about the book. It goes over the common races, and it goes all of them, plus it goes, like, for humans, it goes over all the different cultures of the Inner Sea, which is really pretty amazing. And then they include dwarves all the way through halflings. They go to uncommon races, and they go to rare races, followed by options, which is probably where we're going to spend a good bit of the time. Now, there's a couple of things right off the bat that I want to talk about. I was impressed with the Aslanti. I didn't really know anything about the Aslanti before I started to read this book. But before we even do that, well, basically, okay, now I'm just going to go with where I was going because that's where I'm at. Anyway, the Aslanti are basically a race that keep reoccurring, not recurring, but they're basically, effectively, they're wiped out. And they'll reoccur in all parts of Golarion in different types of... Basically, their DNA recurs much like it's latent. So you might be an elf in some part of the Inner Sea, and you may end up with Aslanti traits. That's the type of thing that happens with this race. And the other thing that's really cool about this book, before we go too crazy, is, well, let's take a look at the template for the common races. Basically, you've got the name, a little bit of a summation on who they are, what they look like, their society, and then it goes into faith, culture, what it's like to play that particular race, something about descent usually, serpent folk. Well, that's not always going to be there. There's always a little subsection with something special or unique to that particular race. Like this one also has serpent folk and pure-blooded. And then how they relate to other races. There's usually a little section on where to find them, how to play them as adventurers, and their outlook on society. What is really cool about this book with the core races is it takes a hard look at the ethnicities, cultures, histories, and I guess in a way you could say the personality of the race and how they react to others. So that would be like their demeanor. And that happens throughout. Now the core race templates change a little bit here and there. The first core race is humans, and it goes through all the different societies within the Inner Sea. You've got the Garundi Chalaxians, and so on. And then it moves into the dwarves, and, well, let's get to the dwarves and all the difference. But you can see right down, they even have, like, the different parts of, the art reflects who they are. And as you can see, there's not a lot of art. And then there's also this section here, too, that covers other human ethnicities. And then it moves, like I said, to the dwarves and the other races. Now, these aren't quite... They pretty much follow the same template, but they're not as detailed as the different human races. And I don't want to really call them races, but the different societies of humanity. The cultures of dwarves and that is pretty broad and overviewed, just like it would be. But it takes everything from within the Pathfinder world and it expounds upon what's already been built on and adds to that foundation. And that's pretty much true all the way through the book. Now, when you get to the back a little bit, when you get into the uncommon races, which you can see that a good bit of the book is actually about the common races, and I'll show you that here in a second. Maybe up there. So, there's pretty much a good bit of the book. 112 pages out of, I think there's 192 in the book. So about half the book is... about the common races. They really took a lot, and they really did focus a lot on nationality and culture to help you bring more flavor into your game. Now, the uncommon races, I found to be one of the cooler sections because it included goblins and kobolds. And well, Asimirs. My son is playing an Asimir, and actually, as far as I can tell, this is the first time where you can get this much information on these uncommon races in one place. Now, the only thing that I feel the book is missing, and maybe I should save this for the end, but the only thing I feel the book is missing is if I was to sit down and create a character that was of one of these said races, it doesn't have the stat block changes to it, which I think it doesn't really matter that much, but I would like I'm one of those people who like to have those types of things in one place. But we're going to take a look here real quick too. As you can see, the template's changed a little bit. You have your Asimir, like summation here, and then the history in the physiology, followed by, well, in this case, it talks about a whole bunch of different types of physiology with the Asimir, which needed to be in depth. You've got all the different angel-blooded type of things. And then it discusses family, their life cycle, faith, which you saw in the previous template too, culture, taste, artistry, and light. And once you get into the culture, these things kind of change a little bit. Like I think there's always one that says taste, and there's generally one about art, and then the rest kind of change a little bit. And then it goes to relations, and basically that is how they relate to other cultures, and then how to play them as adventurers. And that is true all the way throughout. Now, little fact is that I don't remember what I was going to say. So my little fact was about the Drow or the Drow, and that Pathfinder did something first with them, and I can't remember it all. I think Pathfinder's the first one that ever really made them work with poisons. Now, don't quote me on that because I could be wrong, and I didn't write it down, and I probably should have. But as you can see, they've got the same type of setting and whatnot as the template as the other races do. And then you've got the Geniekin, which is kind of cool. The picture is very inspiring to me and makes me want to play one now. But, moving into goblins, goblins are pretty popular within the Pathfinder world, so we know a lot about them, and that's why I wanted to focus on the goblins with the uncommon races to show you what they do. They take the goblins, of course, they've got the little bit of summation, history, physiology, which we all pretty much know about that, but where it starts to get important is after family, life cycle, society, faith, they move into culture. And the culture is, of course, we already know that goblins hate books, but they expound upon it. Of course, fire is a good thing. They like fire in Pathfinder. Pickles are good, which I didn't know about that. But dogs are bad. I knew dogs are bad because I'm getting ready to take a group of players through Rise of the Rune Lords. And as you can see, like for those of you that started playing Rise of the Rune Lords, 12 years ago now, it's gone from 1 or 2 sentences to about 2.5 paragraphs on dogs are bad and explaining the mentality of a goblin. So this just is a great way to expand if you're playing a goblin character, to expand what they do. Like, it's a dog! Ah! Okay. Now, after that, you move into the rare races, which they have several of which, one of which is androids. And again, the template has changed a little bit. There's not as much usually for the summation, and it's gone from 4 to 6 pages down to about 2. So the rare races, they kind of cut in and they give you a slice of the pie, but not the whole pie, I guess is a way to look at it. They have the history, physiology, society, relations, where to find them on Galarian. And this is actually the one that has influenced me the most. I'm certainly looking forward to playing a catfolk, largely because of this picture has been inspiring. But I just think it would be a very fun character to play, especially since they started talking about the society. The thing that struck me the most is smaller tribes are generally led by an older catfolk woman, and consist of her sisters and children. I kind of figured the catfolk were going to be relatively solitary creatures, like kind of like, you know, and this to me brings them much more into a family community. I was thinking more like they were going to be like, okay, the cats go over there and they live alone type of thing, and they do a lot of hunting. And this has opened my eyes to a little bit of a different personality and take as to what I would have played them as. And then after you get through the rare races, which since I didn't show you the picture, we'll go through it here. Changelings, Fears, Fetchlings, which I really like that picture. It's a very interesting picture. And then you have Glorins, which I think Gilman, Hobgoblins. It's just a great picture of a hobgoblin here. Rat folk, which this picture actually says a lot about their personality. You can just look at it and be like, oh wow, I see like a cross between a futuristic race slash society and a oriental style of society. It also makes them look very educated, intelligent, and because it's clean and neat and the way it's cut tells me that they are a sophisticated race. Then you have Strix, Aliens. You have the Dragon Empires, which this was a little bit of an interesting read for me. I like the fact that the Kitsune are in here, but these are just really kind of short reads. And then there's other races too. And again, those are all pretty short reads. And then you move into where I think the meat of the book is. Well, not the meat of the book, but what I found to be one of the greatest parts of the book. They list a whole bunch of racial options right at the beginning of it. And this is things for, you know, like exploring new language options, a new reincarnation table, which can be a lot of fun. And then they move into race traits. And actually, Planetary Traveler was one that sticks in my mind, and it's largely because I'm a skillmonger. You take every opportunity to learn about visits to far-off planets. I kind of wish it would say far-off places, but you gain a +1 to bonus knowledge geography, local, and nature checks regarding other planets. And then another one that stuck out was the one for celestial contact for the Asmirs, and basically you witnessed something that was of great power or great consequence in your life, and it has inspired you, and as a result your effective casting level is 1 level higher. And then we move into feats, and there's some really interesting feats. They talk about the different types of feats right off the bat. They have some new teamwork feats in here, which I've never used, so I find them interesting at the same time as a little bit kind of bewildering. But one of the feats that sticks out in my mind is Ancestral Weaponry Mastery, and that's just because I like the idea of family lineage within epic fantasy type of playing. And one of the things that could be so very cool with this is something like a family sword that works better within your line. But what Weapon Mastery does is it makes you proficient with your race's weapon, or it includes or it makes it one better. So if you're already proficient with it, you basically gain weapon focus. And then, well, obviously they have the list of all the feats. And then, let's see, you get to work your way through them all. And then they have alternate racial traits. And this is a little bit interesting because it allows you to swap out traits for different things. Now, for example, the elves have the option to do disinterested observer, and basically what you can do is you can swap this out, as it says right here. Take one of these alternate racial traits. To take one of these, you must replace or alter an existing standard racial trait or traits indicated. So you would have to swap it with the other version of disinterested observer, which basically this one allows elves to gain +1 racial bonus on attack rolls, skill checks made against as as part of ready to actions in combat. So racial traits, they're like half feats. So for those of you that haven't used traits before, there are ways to put things into your character to make, in my opinion, they improve your storytelling. And then they have all kinds of different things here for different races, other races. For example, the where was it? Androids have repairing nanites, which basically lets them heal effectively. And then Asmirs have a couple of different ones. They have Crusading Magic, which allows them to gain +2 racial bonus on caster level checks to overcome spell resistance. But after the racial traits, you get into some racial spells, which I kind of find interesting, and I don't think we do enough in role-playing games. There should be more things that make races unique. Now, I'm not a huge spellcaster in a lot of games that I play, so nothing really kind of jumped out at me, but I kind of like Burn, Corruption, Elf. Basically, creatures and foliage in the area take 1d8 points of fire damage per 2 levels of caster's use spell. So basically, it's kind of like, aha, get out of my way. It's like burning hands on crack, maybe. And then, after the spells, they get into some of the things that, where is it? Oh, they get into arms and armor. And again, this is another thing that I think we don't do enough in role-playing games. I think we have moved away from the concept of races are special or different in privileged. I think races would do things like this where they focus a lot more on it. So I'm going to butcher this right here. Panoply of the Firani Night Elf, which basically, it's a mithril plate, and it wards against manipulations of chaos. Its wearer receives +2 sacred bonus, and on saves against spells and abilities of outsiders. So this is a really cool suit of armor for, in my opinion, a paladin, or possibly, well, really any warrior, but a paladin type of character would wear this very well. It also helps in protection against environmental effects that are caused by chaos. Just one of the things that stuck out. You do have to be an elf, obviously, to use it or to wear it. And then what else stuck out here? There was a couple of cool things, like the clever slaying of the halfling is one of my favorite ones. But the Tengu dueling bokin definitely was one of my things. Of course, I like the martial arts, so the fact that they did something with a bokin was really cool. And basically, it's a merciful katana. It's made of wood, obviously, because that's what bokins are made of. But it's a bludgeoning. It does bludgeoning damage instead of slashing, the usual slashing damage. It's just very cool. I could see a bunch of these given out as to a special police force, where they kind of walk around with them and they enforce the law. And of course, you know, they do wondrous items as well as arms and armor, and there's some really good wondrous items, and we're not going to spend too much more time on it because we're already 15 minutes into the book. And then in the back, there's racial heritages, and each race is basically associated with special abilities, right? So basically, these are different aspects of the different things that can happen. So, oh, wow, they do have the templates. I was talking about how they didn't have them here. So you've got your dwarves and they're, you know, short, stocky, blah, blah, blah. You've got all your different breakdowns, +2 constitution, +2 wisdom. And they are in the back of the book. And I totally forgot they were here, so I'm sorry for saying they weren't here. I just wish that they were in the front with everything else. And this goes all the way through the whole book. They've got half-orcs here. And then you start moving into your other races. They do have the breakdown for the Azimir and everything. So real quick, let's look at the goblins, because they're like one of my favorite races in this book. Oh, well, they do things too, like they go elves aquatic. So they did that. And of course, they have the different... Here, goblins! They have goblins, which they get +4 dex, -2 strength, +2 charisma, normal speed. They have dark vision. They have +4 racial bonus on ride and stealth checks. And, well, they have languages. But then they have monkey goblins, which basically they're small. They get +1 to AC. They have low light vision instead of dark vision. They gain a racial bonus on acrobatics. They're fearless. They're natural climbers. Holy crap. And they have a tail. So, as you can see, they went through and they did a lot of great stuff. And, of course, they have skinwalkers in here. They have werebears. There's a lot of different races here for you to expand your game with for you and your players. I wish that they would have had a Minotaur in here, because I'm a fan of Minotaurs, and it's a race that I actually want to make for character building. So anyway, what do I think of this book? Well, honestly, I was a tad bit overwhelmed by the book. It's not quite what I anticipated. I'm glad they did the route that they did. Definitely a book that will increase gameplay for both GMs and for players. Thanks for watching. This is Matt Lemke with Through Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com.